What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Game Time Podcast. I am Isaiah Hoffman, along with Daryl and Ramon. Don't mind the dog that just got up on the bed there. That was Apollo. He snuck into the room. But we're changing things up a little bit today. We are doing the wraparound segment to open some things up. I gotta close my door real quick. I know I was supposed to start us off, but I'm actually gonna let Ramon start us off because I have to go up. I have to get up and close the door real quick. So I will let one of you guys start us off.
You want me to go ahead and start off?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yo, it's Ramon coming at you. Coach Stone is the big homie. What I'm going to talk about in the wraparound is going to be way to the left or to the right or however you want to see it. All right? So I'm not going to talk about pro sports. Not today. I'm not going to talk about collegiate sports. Not today. I'm going to talk about the state of Indiana, high school, boys volleyball. Yes, that's where I'm going. And the reason I'm going there is because being in the inner city in our community, we look at boys volleyball and we think, nah, that's not for us. That's a young lady sport. I'm here to tell you there are some major athletes playing boys volleyball in high school. And if you have a child who's a dual sport athlete, maybe basketball, maybe cross country, possibly even football, in the spring, if they're not running track, jump into boys volleyball. I'm talking about increased vertical leaps. I'm talking about powerful movements in short spurts. I'm talking about team, camaraderie, building a great culture and atmosphere, building up your school, keeping your male population involved, keeping them GPAs up high. Volleyball is a gem. I sat there, I watched it, I enjoyed it. I see these guys who are 100% athletes going at it. Get your kid involved. I swear he'll be very, very thankful. Especially if it's a secondary sport, it may turn into the primary sport because the athleticism is off the chain. Do yourself a favor and think about it. Just think about it. Forget about what you heard. Forget about what you saw. It's here. It's now. It's expanding. And believe me, it's exploding. I enjoyed it. Truly enjoyed it. And we're just at the sectional part. We're headed toward the sectional championships just happened. We're going toward the regional. Get involved. Now, unfortunately, we're seeing the strong teams being the suburban teams. We're seeing the strong teams being the parochial school teams. All right. But we need our young male athletes in the inner city to at least look at it and give it a try. It could be a gem, another feather in our cap. Men's, boys volleyball, state of Indiana, high school, it's here and it's good.
I do want to piggyback off that because at IU East we just started men's volleyball this year, and I gotta agree, men's volleyball is a good sport. It's a really good sport, and it's a very talented group of athletes for sure. And I mean, these guys can play. Like, this sport is no slouch. This is, women's volleyball has always had an appeal, and it's because it's an interesting sport. Same thing with men's volleyball. And Ramon, you could probably agree with me. It's women's volleyball and men's volleyball is very different. It's not the same sport because
Not at all.
that level of power is there. The rallies, the volleys, they do not last as long. Now, on a personal preference, I do kind of prefer women's volleyball, and that's maybe because the rallies and the volleys last longer. But men's volleyball is no slouch. You have to. You're setting up your offense for your defense. There's different ways you have to attack based off, who's playing the middle, who's the frontline defense. There's so many different ways to play volleyball based off what you want, whether you want to be a better offensive team or you want to rely on your defense. I would agree. Give men's volleyball a shot if you haven't watched it yet. If you like women's volleyball, give men's volleyball a shot. The volleys and the rallies are a little shorter, but there's a lot of power behind those hits. And it's honestly incredible when you do get a long rally because it's something you don't get often. But I tell you what, it's exciting for sure for someone who just got to broadcast it this year.
So what are we doing in our inner cities we've just talked about, right? To get our young men involved? Are there club leagues? Are we talking juniors? Are we talking mids? what can we do to ensure, that message gets out there, not just in this podcast, but in talking to those young men as well? Because again, as you all know, as young men today, we don't want to do anything that makes us look, in a different light, right? But I would agree with that volleyball is a tough sport. Yeah, the volleys are shorter because of the power, but that doesn't mean that the game isn't as strong and as good if you have an opportunity to be a part of it.
We've done in the school system I work in, we've done a great job of adding boys volleyball to the middle school. All right, for the first year. So we're starting to try to get them interested young. Now we're going to probably set up some inter-club leagues for our younger kids to travel. There are other places like the academy and things like that guys can play in travel leagues. It's costly. It is costly. We got to figure out a way for the inner city somehow to offset that cost. All right, and that's a whole nother podcast. We can also, I think, with our viewership, probably get like a guy like Gene Murray, who's he's inside of the volleyball network, to get involved and to come on the podcast and talk about how we can get the young men involved in volleyball at a younger age. And he works with a group, Rev. Those guys do an outstanding job of touching the inner city and trying to get those guys skill sets up and entrance up. So that's one thing that we can do. It's going to be tough, all right, because of the barbershop talk and the outside voices and noises who may say, nah, you don't want to do volleyball, but man, it will be an incredible secondary sport, and for some people, a primary sport because of their skill sets and the tools that they have.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree. Daryl, do you have anything you want to add, or do you want to do your wraparound segment, or do you want me to
Yeah.
go?
Well, you go ahead and go because mine isn't earth shattering, but it won't be long, so I'll let you go ahead and do yours. I know that may be some pivot off of your wraparound as we talk about it as well.
So I think for my wraparound, I've kind of been back and forth on what I want to talk about for the wraparound. But I think for me, I am gonna talk about the WNBA for a second. I think yesterday with the Caitlin Clark and the Angel Reese, obviously Ramon has it as his background there. I think everyone's got to calm down on the foul call last night. I think Robert Griffin III, he said it on Twitter. He was like, you can't watch that and say Angel Reese doesn't have some type of dislike towards Caitlin Clark. And that's fine, They're pinned as rivals in the media. They are rivals in the media, but you can't say it's just a basketball rivalry. I think there is some type of jealousy there, and there may be some jealousy on both sides. There may not be. You never really know. But I think everyone's just kind of got to stop looking at this from a race perspective. It's just basketball, right? Was the foul? I mean, does the foul look great? No, but it's just a foul. I see both points. Caitlin could have just let her got the layup, but she chose to do the foul. I could see why Angel was mad because, I mean, it's a wide open lane. She's right there. You didn't really have to foul, to be honest. I see both sides of the argument. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, it's just basketball. The Fever are definitely going to be contenders this year. I think the Sky still have a little ways to go, but they could always get into a groove this year. And I think the other team that I'm interested to watch this year is the Aces, right? I definitely see the Aces may have a down year. They traded Kelsey Plum. They've got some other pieces on the roster that they have to do. Obviously, all the teams are kind of at a disadvantage because there was an expansion draft. They've got a new Golden State team in the league now. So it's a really interesting time for the league. They saw a lot of success last year. Obviously, Caitlin Clark, they had to move to bigger buildings when she came into town. And even her being in the league, it's helped other teams grow their ticket sales. I think New York, they're doing a good job with ticket sales at this moment in time. I think the Sparks will do better with ticket sales now that they've got Kelsey Plum there, along with some of the younger assets they have on that team. And then shout out to Paige Buckers as well. She didn't have a bad game either. I'm definitely going to be watching the WNBA, especially with the NBA playoffs about to end up, and we've got some future guests coming on that are going to be basketball oriented. I'm all basketball right now, so I'll definitely be watching. I think it's going to be a really fun year for the WNBA for sure.
I want to kind of add on to that WNBA talking, especially the Angel and Caitlin conversation. So there's been a lot of talk on social media about what happened last night, how it went, what happened, what the intent was. First of all, it's very difficult to express intent of someone else unless you're in their brain. So what I saw from my perspective was a foul, clearly to make sure she didn't get the basket up, get her arms above her shoulders to make the basket. I get that. Yeah, there was a little bit of a shove at the back end of that with the
Mhm.
left arm. It absolutely was. It was an absolute hard foul. But in today's sensitive topics climate, that's why I believe it was called a flagrant because of the history, not because of the play. Two parts. One is the history, and then Angel's overreaction, right? As if she really, really, really wanted to fight. And I see a lot of people saying, "Well, hey, she was going to go get her." Well, show me a clip where you see Angel Reese fight. Okay, then we'll talk. They're not fighting. Okay, that's the hold me back, right? And I get that she was hurt because that she fell and semi flop or whatever case you want to call it. But the fact is, it's a hard foul. They called it flagrant. Fair enough. I wouldn't die on the heel of saying don't call it a flagrant. They called it flagrant, so be it. But again, like I said, it was a part of that was because of the history, not just because of that individual action. So for me, it's pretty much a nothing burger. As I said at the beginning of the year, Caitlin Clark's going to have a great year. Angel Reese is going to have a good year.
Yeah.
She's not the player Caitlin Clark is, though. So we can't keep trying to make this comparison of Magic versus Bird, right? This is how it came out last season, if you all remember. Magic versus Bird. The similarities stop after they played in the NCAA tournament. One is African American, one is white. Okay. Their games are completely different. Okay. What Caitlin brings to the table is nothing compared to what Angel brings from a rebounding and in the paint perspective, and vice versa. Angel brings nothing what Caitlin does, putting that ball on the string, getting people on skates, getting to the basket. And the bigger thing for me is with Caitlin Clark, her IQ. She sees the court and she sees things happening before they happen. And as I said before, and this is I think the first time I've said it on air, she reminds me of Pete Maravich. Those of y'all who don't know who he is, go back and look at Pete Maravich and look how he played the game of basketball, not just in the NBA, but also in college at LSU. That's who she reminds me of, Pistol Pete Maravich, and he was an all time great. And that's my perspective on the game yesterday and on those two players.
Real quick, I
You were
agree.
mute. You were mute. I think Isaiah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
No,
we
it
got
was
you. We
me.
got you.
You go ahead. My dog was barking. You go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree. Uh, this is all made up, right? The antics, the hate. You know, I say this with and not to brag about this. I've been a hothead as an athlete in high school, in college, and as a young adult. I've been a fighter. When Angel Reese got pushed down and she got up, she didn't want to fight. You know, Boston just stuck her hand out and she stopped.
Yeah.
If you want to fight, someone stick their hand out. You ain't stopping. Ask the guy in Detroit when he saw the blood when LeBron hit him. That's a guy who want to fight. Ben Wallace wanted to fight Ron Artest. Angel Reese wanted to look good in front of 20,000 people like she was upset, but she didn't want any part of that. And Caitlin Clark didn't either. She knows she's not a fighter. One knows that they don't want to fight, and one wants to act like and wants you to think that she wants to fight. She don't want to fight. Neither one of them are about that type of life. So quit faking it and play basketball. Couple different things. You said it right. That was a normal foul. She went for the ball. She tied her up. Small shove. It looked like a lot of shove because Reese was already off balance. Base was too small. One foot hit the other foot. So it amplified the little push. Two, if you watch it over again in slow motion, Reese's arm goes up and she starts welling way before the actual shove happens. It's like it was all a bunch of BS, man. And I don't. When is the review different where they're reviewing that foul, but they couldn't see the foul previous? Because Angel Reese pushed Boston in the back that started the whole thing. So you push somebody, you can't get mad if you got pushed after that. Come on. It's athletics. It's sports. It happens like that. Let's quit with all the fake tough guy stuff or tough girl stuff and just play ball, Now, you talked about Caitlin Clark and Pistol Pete. I like that. For me, Caitlin Clark looks a lot like Pistol Pete, definitely, and Steve Nash.
Yeah, the ball's on the string.
Balls on the string, great passing, can shoot it. She's got those intangibles, those other things. The one thing I want to say before I get off this wraparound or tagging on to yours is that people are upset that she went back in the game to get that triple-double. So what? We saw people give up sacks so somebody could break a record. We saw Angel Reese put in games or kept in games that were blowouts to get double-doubles. We saw Shedeur Sanders throwing the ball deep with 3 or 4 touchdown leads. His dad even told him one time he should have ran the clock out. His brother told him that he's padding stats. We saw the Colorado Buffaloes up by 3 touchdowns, 5 on the goal line, and run a reverse to Travis Hunter because he hadn't scored all game. It happens. Whether we like it or not, it happens. And you know what? At first, as a coach and as a player, I couldn't stand it. But you know what? If these guys work all week, or these girls work all week, and they work all game, and you want to get them an extra number, an extra digit, by all means, go get it. That's your reward. You deserve that triple-double. Because all the time you put in and everything you did, you deserve it. I may not like it. I may not do it, but I understand it.
No, that's a good call on that, and just to that point, I agree with you. My only concern is like you meant about Ben Wallace wanting to fight Ron Artest, and I don't want to relive that because it's NBA, but real quick, if your stars in the game at the end, there's some jealousies that happen across the line. Be careful. You don't want one of your stars being hurt in those situations. That's all I would say to that. But I'm with you. If you don't like it, stop me. Right? That's what we're saying. If you don't like it, stop me. I get that for sure.
Daryl, what's your wraparound? And then I got one more thing I want to get to, mainly because I want to hear Ramon's answer.
Okay. Well, mine is NIL, right? This past week, Kirby Smart was talking about he would not like his seniors, her upperclassmen players, to be competing against freshmen for income. He says his freshmen shouldn't make more money than his upper class players. He spoke about that, and a lot of people had a lot of opinion about that. I've been really heavy on the NIL piece, and here's what I say is this. The NCAA had an opportunity 4 years ago before this fell off the rails to do something about it. They chose to look the other way. They chose to say, well, it'll just work itself out. Well, it has worked itself out. Now schools are having to work into their collectives. They're starting to have every school's having a general manager. They're starting to try to run it like an NFL program. Why? Because it's pay to play now. And you can't be angry at these players for saying, how much can I get? Because let's call it, less than 2% of all college football players are going to play in the NFL. And we're talking about we're just talking about football. So if that's the case, why wouldn't I maximize my earning opportunity in college, just as they say you should, right? Why do you go to college? To get a better life, right? And if that's the case, and less than 2% of the college players are going to be in the NFL, how much better can my life be if I stay in school another year or go to another school that's going to give me a little bit more money?
Yep.
So I don't blame the players for this in any way, shape, or form. They're taking advantage of an opportunity given to them. My only question to the NCAA and all those who are knocking the NIL, collective talk, where was all this money before? Someone was pocketing this money before. If money was going somewhere, and now that it's going to the players, and now we've got an issue with it. I don't have an issue with it. I hope the NIL platform continues. I do believe there needs to be guardrails, and I know we're going to talk about that in other episodes, but I want to set the tone for that because it's important, and it affects high school athletics. It affects NAIA, Division two, three, and all of that. So it's something to talk about. I know a lot of people don't like to discuss it; they like to put their opinion in and be done with it. But I think there needs to be an opportunity to really expand on this. And again, having Ramon on board is great because high school coach, right? Then we're talking about how that's going to affect his players. So I think that's my wraparound. I want to bring more light to the NIL talk and see where we are with this, not just this year, but in the coming years as well.
I wanna bounce off to that, and then I'll let Ramon talk, and then I want to have Ramon kind of give his thoughts on what we talked about last week, Daryl. But I kind of compare college football right now to like F1, right? And F1, it's pay to win. You know, if you got the most money to build the best car, you're gonna win. And we've done the car comparisons, right? You said the Mark Williams with the buyer remorse, like the new car. It's kind of like how college football is now. You know, you're paying to win. Same way in racing, you use the money to get the best parts. You're doing the same thing here. You're recruiting the best players to get the best parts. And I think a good example is the IU football player that played center last year. I don't remember his name. He did an interview on Barstool, and he basically was going to enter the draft last year before Cignetti had been announced as the head coach, but he was going to enter the draft. And why did he? He met with Coach Sig, and Sig was like, I win everywhere I go, da 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 da, this and this, the culture, stuff like that. But why did he come back? And he said it in the interview. He said, and then we talked NIL, and he was like, "There's no way I can pass this down." It's a money driven. I'm going to call it a league, but it's a money driven league now in college football. And honestly, I mean that's okay, right? I think same thing with Daryl. There has to be regulations because as someone that goes to an NAIA school, these coaches, these different players, they're feeling the effects on the level below because you can't build a program, right? You've got these players that are coming here just thinking, okay, I'm going to come here for 1 year and then I'm going to go somewhere else. And then most of the time, they're not going to play at that next level because they couldn't wait another 1 to 2 years. If you go to an NAIA school, wait. Don't be so quick to rush to the next school at the top level because they have interest in you after 1 to 2 years. You can wait, stay there for 3 years, stay there 4 years because you know why? You have a graduate year. Most players have a graduate years. Take that graduate year because if you play really well in 4 years of NAIA or Division two NCAA, most likely you're going to get the chance to go overseas and play basketball there and make a lot of money as well. Don't rush to Division one when you get that first Division one offer, whether that's high school, whether that's your second year in college, because most of the time, if you go to NAIA, you play 1 to 2 years and you go to that next level, I'm telling you right now, you're most likely not going to play and you're just going to transfer the next year and go back to where you were. Stay at that first school for 3 years because you're going to get that opportunity more than likely. And if you don't, then you have a more reason to exit and go to a different school that's on the same level. Ramon, you can go.
I hate NIL and I hate the transfer portal. And I hate them both combined. Boy, it's rough. Now, I play college football, and so I would have loved to make a couple thousand million, $100 million. It would have been great. I have multiple concerns. A, the biggest thing I enjoyed about college football that I played was camaraderie. And jumping from team to team to team to team, you eliminate that. You don't have an alliance with a university or teammates. So memories are done. It's all transactional now. Everything's money. All right. Even in the pros, when they make a lot of money, they still have, man, I'm a 49er. Man, I'm a Bill. Man, I'm a Raven. Because all of that money is in a contract where they stay for 4 or 5 years. Right? These kids are staying 4 or 5 months. 4 or 5 months, and then they're jumping out and going. So, A, they're not really getting education because we all got education. And all them credits they transferring from school to school to school to school. So some of them taking online third-party courses to make sure they're eligible the next year. All right, so they're not getting the true education. They're not getting any way to remember how to use that money. So as you said, only 2% going to the league. So now they're getting 300, 400, 500,000, maybe a million or two in that 4-year period. And they're going to leave and go get a job to make $60,000. Mentally, emotionally, are they ready to drop down from a millionaire to a thousandaire? And then are they put their money away where it's going to stretch out over time? Probably not. So the peak of your earning may happen as a 19-year-old, 20-year-old, and then you're going downhill from there. That's an emotional drop, right? So your education may not be true. You may be emotionally messed up because you've reached your peak earning potential. You don't have any memories or friends really in college because you paid that over the dollars. You know, there's some after effects going to happen to these kids, unfortunately. And that's not to talk about what's doing to the high school, how you better be the best of the best to get you a scholarship, because half of these coaches are looking for people who came out of the portal. You know, they're not looking for as many high school kids. So now, as a high school, a lot of kids now say, I got to specialize. I can't play 2, 3 sports. I got to play one because I'm competing against grown men already. So I got to be kind of nice in whatever I do, mentally, physically, and technique-wise already. So that becomes a burden on building programs in high school. And then both layers, the high school and NCAA 1 through 3 and NAIA now, building a program is crazy because you don't know what you got from every 3 months. It's something different. So, man, there got to be a lot more guardrails. I would love – I'm an ex-athlete. I want them to get paid. Get that money. All right? Get that money for real. But it's got to be guidelines around it. And I mean strong guidelines. I don't mean like a little something here, a little something there. You're a pro athlete, man. If I give you $300,000, you're a pro. You're not an amateur no more. I ain't never seen no $1 million amateur in nothing. You're a pro. And pros got rules, strict ones. You need to start getting them strict rules too.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, and we talked about it on this podcast before, it's almost like there needs to be a contract. You know, if obviously you're going to get your 4-year scholarship, but there should be something on the side. Okay, if you do want to transfer, there needs to be an open and upfront conversation. If player A wants to transfer, that coach needs to say, okay, but you need to sign a 2-year deal. You need to guarantee me right now you'll stay here for 2 years at the least. For 2 years. And if that player doesn't agree, then I mean, you got to work something out because we talked about a buyout system a couple episodes ago, but something has to be done because I am for players getting paid as well. I've always been that same way. I also feel players should have the right to leave if they don't feel like they're getting the best opportunity. But I also agree some of these kids are I'm saying kids are the same age as me, but you know what? It's fine. They're jumping the gun, you know, and it could ruin their decision because at the end of the day, being 20, 19, you're old, you're an adult you're an adult to some degree, but you also may make a wrong decision, and you need that type of guidance. So I think there should be something in play where, okay, if I visit with this coach and obviously I have my 4-year scholarship if I stay here 4 years, but on the athlete side, when I sign that NIL contract, it's okay, you have to be here a minimum of 2 years. And then after that 2-year contract, you can kind of transfer, I wouldn't say it's like a player option, obviously, but just something that guarantees these coaches some type of stability to build a team. It's like, okay, I've got 2 years with this player and say it's the quarterback. I got 2 years to build around this guy and try to convince him to stay another 2 years. And I think that would be probably the best way to go. We've got about 2 minutes left in the segment. So, Daryl, I want to get your final thoughts, and then we'll open up the next segment talking NBA, and I want to get Ramon's thoughts on last week as well.
Real quick.
Go ahead.
I would love to see a buyout.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that too.
Yeah, you want my quarterback? I gave him $3 million. He's only earned $1 million. You give me 2, you can have him.
That's a good
buy his contract out.
Yep.
Well, it's that way in coaches. Why wouldn't it be that way, with players as well? And again, like I said, I really think this is something that as the summer goes along, I'm talking segment, guests, and that type of thing. So with that said, I agree, guardrails, absolutely, but it has to be equity, right? Same with the expectation for the player, same for the coach. These guys are jumping ship at an alarming rate as well. And not a lot of people are kind of scoffing at that. So as
Yeah.
long as the playing field is somewhat even. And I understand coaching is a different dynamic than being a player, because players are going to only be there for the most part 3 or 4 years. Coaches, a little bit longer longevity. But with that said, I'm okay with it being a level field.
Coaches are employees, so make players employees if you want
Yep.
The balance. All right, coaches got to get bought out. Make players have to get bought out if you want the balance. I'm cool with that, but they can't be amateur and pro. I'm pro with the money, but I'm amateur with the all the other benefits. Nah, you one or two. You want to be treated like a coach? Cool. The other person got to buy you out, and you're an employee. I can fire you.
Yeah, I agree as well. We've got under a minute left, so we are going to go ahead and get ready for the next segment. We're talking NBA playoffs, and we're going to get Ramon's thoughts on last week's content as well. Don't go anywhere. We've got more content right here on the Game Time Podcast.